What's up, guys? It's your boy Justin. I'm doing a book review. This time I'm reviewing George R.R. Martin's Wild Cards 1, the book that started it all. Cool cover, by the way. It's, what is it, 594 pages long. It's a superhero anthology book from 1987, published by Tor, science fiction, not fantasy, which I love Tor Final. Sorry, not Final Fantasy. Tor Fantasy, dude. They put out a lot of my favorite fantasy books. So I picked up. I read this book. What made me want to read this book was the Wild Cards put out a new book called House of Cards. I can't remember what it was called. Not House of Cards. Something. I looked at it, dude, and it looked like. It reminded me of like a Hammer horror film. Like I read the description. Wow, this sounds like a cool. Like they did like a Wild Cards version of like a Hammer film, which I love the Hammer films, which are UK horror films from like the 50s, from the 70s, right? Very gothic. That's where Vincent Price and what's his name? Guy who played Saruman. Lord of the Rings films. Christopher. Oh my God, Christopher something. Really cool guy. So I read this and I hated Inside Straight, which was the first Wild Cards book I read. That was from 2007. It has the cool guy in the white armor on a motorbike in Egypt, and you see the. Was it a pyramid or the Sphinx behind it? I can't remember. But I hated that book. But I'm like, I'll give this one a chance. You know, I'll read it before I pick up the latest Wild Cards book. And dude, I thought this one would be good because one of the stories in this book, which is it's a superhero anthology book, by the way. George R.R. Martin used to be a fan of comic books. And dude, I thought this one would be good because it has like a story by Roger Zelazny. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name. And I reviewed like, technically I've read 6 of his books, but I reviewed 2 on the channel. One of them was a collection. One was like the first 5 books in the Chronicles of Amber series. And I also reviewed Dream Master, which, you know, and he wrote a story called The Sleeper in this book. So I read it expecting, I'm probably going to like it, because like it's not going to be as woke as the shitty 2007 book. Holy crap, was I wrong, dude. Holy crap, was this wrong. This book was lefty as fuck. I know you're not supposed to swear, but holy crap, it was lefty as hell. Very left-wing leaning, even though it's like, dude, like the book starts off from like 1946 to 1987, I think. Right? So most people back then, especially Americans, were Republican, but like whatever. Very left-wing leaning, dude. And the story was like, you read, one of the iconic, characters in the Wild Cards series is Jet Boy, right? Who's on the cover. So from reading Inside Straight, it made it sound like he died in, saving the planet from alien invasion. Holy shit, was that fucking wrong. Spoiler alert, he dies. I'm not going to say when he dies, but he's only in the 50 pages in the book, dude. It's like, Jesus Christ. Holy shit, man. I was like, what the hell? And he didn't even die fighting aliens, dude. He dies like trying to stop the some like mad scientist, like he wasn't a mad scientist, but more like, like pulp kind of villain kind of dude who lost like half his face, and I assume in the war, who knows? He was like basically like a criminal genius type, trying to stop this criminal genius type from like dropping a bomb on New York, which happened to be carried the wild card virus. So what the whole event that started that caused like superhumans, metahumans to be created in which started the whole wild card universe, right? Was that basically aliens with psychic aristocratic aliens develop a virus that can randomly give infected hosts superpowers, but it's only like a 1 in 10 chance or something, and in that 1 in 10 chance, there's like a 90% chance you'll either die or turn into a freak, which is what they call the Jokers, right? Even though some of the Jokers have superpowers, but whatever. And the people that have superpowers are called aces, right? These are like people like look normal but have like extraordinary powers, most of which are psychic based. Most of them are psychics, which in the appendix they explain that they have a fear that since the virus was made by people who are psychics, they realize that all the superpowers are basically actually psychic base, which considering most of the aces in the book have like psychic-esque powers, that kind of, I guess that makes sense. Which there's even some shit. I've been playing Warhammer 40k again, and like, if in Warhammer 40k lore, right, there's like orcs technology, like it's described that it actually doesn't work. It's that they're low level psychics that uses like their psychic powers to make their shitty technology work, and that's how they explain like superheroes, like the tech superheroes in the book, even though we never see any tech superheroes. There's only one story in the fucking book that feature like a superhero called The Great Amazing Turtle, which was written by George R.R. Martin, which is about like this fat geek who gets fat comic book geek and his Italian American friend who owns a scrapyard decide to become superheroes, and they create this like armored Volkswagen that the fat guy uses his superpowers, TK powers, to float in the sky and like saves people with his telekinesis, right? And it looks like kind of like a UFO. So people at first, because he has like lights and cameras on the outside so he can see what the fuck is going on, because he has it completely armored up, because he can't, like, his friend beats when he first tells his friend he wants to be a superhero, his friend points out like, no, there's no way you can be a superhero, and beats the shit out of so it points out his weakness, that he can't use his superpowers while in direct conflict, so he has to be like in an armored like vehicle for him to use his powers, right? And that's why he's called the Great Amazing Turtle. But like the story starts off with like, there's these aliens they have this virus, but they don't want to use it on themselves because of the effects, so they want to study effects, so they plan on using it on Earth, right? Post World War II. And one of the aliens doesn't agree with this, and he's nicknamed Dr. Tachyon, who's this guy who dressed like, like a musketeer, like a aristocratic nobleman musketeer, kind of Renaissance kind of character, who travels to Earth to try to destroy the ship, but he loses track of the ship and comes down to the United States to try to convince the U.S. government to help him. only for that doesn't work. And there's like, you know, he eventually meets up with Einstein, which there's really shitty cameos in the book with real world people, mostly politicians. But there's an interlude chapter with Hunter S. Thompson where he meets up with the junkie ace Croyd, who was created by fucking Roger Zelazny, which that chapter was like, holy shit, dude. There's only like two good stories in this book. One's the sleeper, and the other one's with the Great Amazing Turtle, which was written by George R.R. Martin. The rest are from shitty to okay. Like the last story was okay, and then there's a story about this old guy, who's old Polish guy, or no, it was like Russian. I can't remember, but like 50-something-year-old old guy who's working for the CIA during the Cold War, who has like powers that allow him to stop time, but because like there's a witch hunt, because the book also kind of rips off X-Men. So there's a story where like there's a witch hunt going on for aces, because at first when people first started to get superpowers, it was treated like like a epidemic, natural disaster epidemic. But then you started to have people with superpowers show up, and some Truman's like second-hand command or something, VP or whatever, decides to create a superhero team called the Four Aces. One of them the team was very diverse, by the way. One of them happens to be a communist, and that started because during the 50s you had like the Hollywood witch hunt for the communists in Hollywood. They have like another witch hunt for the aces, which, by the way, they tried to make it like seem that's the very anti-right wing, very anti American or whatever, not American, but like anti-right wing, anti-conservative story. Only for later in the book, those people were proven right, because there's a like some of the stories feature like super criminals and like villains. One of them's called the Puppet Master, who is a Democrat who infiltrated Scar, convinced everybody that he's like a good guy, including Tachyon, Dr. Tachyon, who's a fucking telepath, by the way. Convinces everybody he's a good guy, who's manipulating the activists to do his bidding, like the Joker activists, which are the people who were affected by the wildcard virus, who turn into like freaks and like outcasts and whatever, right? Who's led by like a midget guy who calls himself Gimli. He kind of reminded me of like Tyrion. So it's like kind of some of the story elements in this book remind me of Game of Thrones. So yeah. That dude turned out to be a pedophile, by the way. Which there's like 2 sex scenes in the book. I mentioned this in my book haul that I'm gonna upload like Wednesday or whatever. But like there's like 2 story there's two sex scenes in the book with characters that are like may or may not be underage. One of them is of age, but she's an ace who works for the Joker, civic group, civil activist group, right? Whose job is to seduce men, as like she's basically like a prostitute, right? To get like political favors for the party, and she's forced to sleep with the Democrat dude, who's called the Puppet Master, who can like mind control people, right? Kinda. He has to manipulate them to have certain feelings before he can make them do what he wants. So like her ace ability, which some of the ace abilities have drawbacks, like there are the two ace abilities that can, well, that age the user when they use it. So her ace ability allows her to, it's like a genjutsu where she can turn her body into whatever, you know, object of desire the person most finds beautiful, right? So he finds most beautiful fucking 12-year-old girl that he mind controlled a mentally deficient guy into raping a girl who was 12 years old or something at the time, because she laughed at him when he was a kid and they tried to ask her out, whatever. That story was messed up as fuck. And there's also another story with a hippie dude. But that story was retarded, but yeah, that was left wing as fuck. So like a lot of the stories are left wing as fuck. The last story, most of the stories have in common, except for the first story where, you know, the main character is Jet Boy, who doesn't have superpowers. That was because it was before the wild card virus, you know, went off. The last story is called what was it called? In Comes the Hunter or whatever. Oh my god. Comes the Hunter, which is about this guy who was like, may or may not have been a GI during Vietnam, who tries to hunt down and kill like a rogue North Vietnam general or whatever, who defected to the U.S., who became a drug lord, only to get a side mission. Who one of his like collaborators or whatever's daughter gets kidnapped, and he has to go and rescue her. Which that character was kind of like a ripoff of Hawkeye. I don't know if that was intentional, maybe I was wrong, but yeah. He was like a Zen archer dude. He was like a weeaboo dude. And he has to fight a guy who teleports, which there was a teleporting ace in Inside Straight. But yeah, like, honestly, dude, the book, if you ignore the politics of the book, there are a couple good stories. And there was some stories in the book that made me laugh out loud. Sorry, not some stories, like some moments in the book that made me laugh out loud, especially some in the beginning, right? Where you have like excerpts from interviews where they're talking about like the first contact with Dr. Tachyon. Like the one guy says like, I can't even say what he said because there's like colorful language in the book, which could be deemed hate speech by today's standards. Holy fuck, but like, yeah. Oh my god, and the Fortunato story. Oh my god. One other problem I have with the book is that this is supposed to be a superhero anthology series, but there's hardly any superheroes in the book, and there are supposed to be costume superheroes in the universe, but there's no stories with them, dude. So that bothers the fuck out of me. And a lot of the stories in the book were murder mystery stories, which is like, there were like at least fucking 3, which is like, do we need 3 of those? Like, what the fuck? But yeah, dude, I don't know. I'll get into the pauses of the book. There were like the George R.R. Martin story and the Roger Zelazny stories were pretty good. Because I really felt for Croyd, man. Because Croyd was like a little kid who was a little kid when wild card virus hit, and his dad dies. Very comedic, by the way. The reveal for that, his dad dies, and he's forced to, when his wild card is that he becomes an adult and gets a random superpower, and he'll stay up for like days on end. I think even like a week or 2 on end, and then when he eventually does fall asleep, he gets a new form with a new power, and sometimes he becomes a Joker, and sometimes he becomes an Ace, and sometimes in between, right? And to he meets a Joker who's like the dog man, who's like a criminal who basically grooms Croyd into becoming a criminal. And Croyd has to steal to provide for his family. Which I love the scene where, like, you know, he gets really pissed off at his brother, annoyed by his older brother, because he's the baby in the family, but because like his older siblings are basically teenagers, right? So they can't really look after him, even though it's like the 40s and 50s. Like people like used to drop out of school and make a living, buy a house by the time they were 24 or whatever. Not fucking today, but whatever. So like he sees that his brother bought like a fancy new car, and he's like, what the fuck? And there's like a scene where like he has to and one of the things is that he becomes a drug addict because like he has to plan heists, but sometimes, you know, he'll start to get sleepy before the heist, but he'll have a power that he needs to use for the heist to pull it off. So he has to start based off the advice of like Talkion, who didn't realize it, that he, you know, he's because he's like, you know, from like a different culture or whatever, to say, hey, you could just take meth to keep yourself awake longer, which has like adverse effects to him. So he starts becoming a drug addict, dude. And later on, there's a great story where like he's hanging out with like fucking Huntress Thompson, which that was only like 5 or 6 pages, but that was fucking hilarious as fuck, dude. Which Huntress Thompson's real life guy who was like a drug addict, like journalist dude, who was there's a really great Terry Gilliam film called Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where Johnny Depp plays him, and it's like really great. And like also there was like, you know, there was a character from fucking Venture Bros that was based off him. Really, like Hunter S. Thompson was like a guy who was like, this guy seems like a fucking character, dude. Like he doesn't seem like a real person. Holy fuck! But that was like one of the good stories. And Croyd is one of the only few reoccurring characters because he's basically immortal. And there's like a superhero who's like really fucking cool, called Golden Boy, who's basically could have been this universe's Superman, but because he had no choice but to snitch on his fellow aces. He was one of the four. He was part of the first like ace superhero team, right, in the 40s, right. He had He accidentally snitched on, you know, his communist fucking team member, right, and indirectly got one of his team members killed. But it was the thing where like, or not killed, but like basically she was put in a mental house where she eventually died. They would have fucking put 2 and 2 together anyway. That, oh yeah, we could have, like, because they asked her, hey, they asked Talkion to snitch on who all the aces are that he's met, and he refused. But like, there's this one girl in the team called Brain Trust who can absorb like the memories of people, so they could have used her to get the info from Dr. Talkion, who he's fucking her, by the way. And there's a story written by one of the other co-creators, the Melinda Snodgrass, or Melinda M. Snodgrass, and dude, like, she's fucking a shitty fucking writer, and she's one of the only few recurring writers in these fucking books, dude. Oh my god. Which the other writers are like Henry Waldrop, Walter John Williams, Michael Kazuk, David D. Levine, Louis Shiner, Victor Milan, Edward Bryant, Leanne C. Harper, Stephen Lee, Carrie Vaughn, John J. Miller. I think the only other person, I think I've heard of Carrie Vaughn, but the other people I've never fucking heard of, dude. Holy fuck. I can't believe there's like 22 of these books. I thought there was like 7, dude. Holy fuck. 22 of these fucking books, dude. One of them has, one of them has Claremont writes a story, but holy fuck. But yeah, to wrap it up, if you put the politics aside and the degenerate, fucking weird, the degenerate sex that would be illegal if you filmed it, it's somewhere between mid. But it's the thing where it's the thing where George really shines is in his world building, and the world building for this series is really fucking good. But the problem is, like, you have like shitty fucking characters, and unlike with fucking Inside Straight, where all the different short stories were interconnected and was part of a bigger plot. There was no bigger plot. It was just like random fucking short stories. It was more like this book was about establishing like a universe, dude. Which, holy fuck. So it's like, what the fuck, dude? I thought there was gonna be a big, like, climax or something like an Inside Straight, but there's not. So in some ways, this is worse than Inside Straight. But like Inside Straight, only had like one good story, but it had a good climax. Here it's like, fuck, man. There was like, I don't know, man. It's fucked. Like, I hate, like, superhero deconstruction. Like, was one of the worst fucking things. Like, deconstruction in general fucking is terrible. But like superhero deconstruction, like, holy fuck. Besides from Watchmen, which started it all, what good superhero deconstruction besides from Watchmen have we gone? Besides from The Boys, I guess. And like, Jesus Christ, man. This book, it was not great, dude. It was not great. I probably, if I do, the only reason I would get more wildcard books is if I found them cheap, like for cheap, dude. Which the latest book is $40, dude, and like, fuck off. And even like, you read the reviews, and even longtime wildcard fans, like, said like, this book sucks. Like, you brought fucking multiverse into the wildcard universe. Holy fuck. But yeah, dude. I mean, I think there's a reason why the wildcard books, you go into stores, and if they do have wildcard books, it's either they only have the first book or the latest book. And that's it, dude. They don't do like, hey, let's put like collections where like, oh, we bundled the first fucking 3 books together, the 5 books together, and you buy, like, you can pay you $100 or whatever to get the first 5 books or whatever. Or like, they put them out in collections, right? Like, no, they don't do that because the fucking series fucking sucks, dude. Oh my god. So my next month's book review, I did a poll, but I don't think anybody's going to vote for the poll. So I went through my Warhammer fucking book collection, which I had like 23 books. Most of them I haven't fucking read. Some of them I'm going to have to reread for the fucking sequels I fucking have that I never finished. Oh my god. But yeah, I saw that, I actually do have a book that features like a Rogue Trader, which I'm currently playing Rogue Trader. Which the sequel comes out this year, where the main character is the Inquisitor, which is pretty fucking cool. So I'm going to read this for next month. And I'm thinking I might do X-Men month in June, which that's where I review X-Men and X-Men spin-off teams, like, and characters, graphic novels. I might, who knows. Yeah, that's it, guys. Peace out.